So today we're going to make homemade sauce that Marissa has grown up on for over the years but never really paid attention to. So we start with a very large can of Ultra Cinco whole plum tomatoes. And we start by putting that into the can, into the sauce pot right now.
Yep.
And next we use 2 cans of tomato paste. One at a time, they go into the sauce also. Use a spoon to get it out. It's hard to get out.
Why do you get the whole ones?
These are probably the best
Why don't you see what...
tomatoes.
Oh, you goodness. They are a San Marzano tomatoes.
They are. And they're
And
probably
those are-
the best ones now. Out there.
You get them just from like Wegmans?
No, we actually get these from Mineo's Wholesale.
Where is it?
Most restaurants use these.
Oh.
You'll see Randy's cousin there, Charlie. Christina, he uses these.
Yeah,
They're restaurant size, that's why.
Oh, okay.
and these are what San Marzano tomatoes look like from our garden. This is basil, this is parsley. We're going to use this in the sauce or in the meatballs. This is parsley fresh, and then we chop it and dry it and keep that. Why don't you see what this looks like before we grind this up? You can see the whole tomatoes in there. And what we do is mince this up.
I'm gonna have to buy one of those one day.
Yeah. The residual tomatoes out of the can, put a little bit of water in, swish it around, and then you can add that to the sauce, but very little water needs to go into this sauce.
Okay.
Now we're going to take a quarter cup, almost a quarter cup of sugar, plain granulated sugar, and add that to the sauce, kind of sprinkle it around.
Sweetens it up.
Okay.
And then we do some butter. It's probably a half a stick to a stick, depending on how much sauce you're making. We're only making 1 can, so I'm just gonna put a couple scoops of butter. 1 big scoop of butter. So this is some fresh basil. You're just gonna throw that right in whole. Do about, again, depends how much sauce you're making. I'll do about 4 basils. Just plop those in.
All right, now you're going to take a whole sweet Vidalia onion. Very important to have a sweet Vidalia onion. And we are going to cut that up.
Is that just like a yellow onion, or is that the white ones?
It's white, but it's, you know, sweet Vidalia is a type of onion that is, it just adds a really nice sweetness to the sauce.
Okay.
So you're going to peel that. And I'm going to dice that up, and we're going to put that, we're going to fry that, and then it's going to go into the sauce. Basically, we're going to use almost 3/4 of that whole onion to put into the sauce.
Let's see your technique.
You're going to cube it. Don't lose a finger. Oh. Oh.
Very impressive.
So to fry the onion until they're translucent, you're just going to use a little olive oil, like a teaspoon. Get that warm. Yep.
Want me to wait?
No, you can put it in. It's fine. I'm just gonna fry those up until they're translucent, and then I'm gonna throw them in the sauce.
Wait, what do we got here?
So, meat is usually pretty key when you're making meatballs. I always use kind of a combo. I get usually a pound. This is kind of more 2 pounds, but a pound of 80/20, just ground beef, and then I do a pound of what they call meatloaf mix, which is a combination of beef, pork, and veal. And it just makes it the pie. It's the moistest. The more leaner the meat, the drier they're gonna be. So
that's
why I
85-15.
Yeah.
close, but usually run an 80/20.
Do you get your meat at like a certain place, or do you just?
No. I mean, there's some people who like certain meatloaf mixes. But I think, I don't know, they can taste different. Our meatballs are pretty consistent,
Yeah.
so I
Just
try to
the
get them.
consistency, the leanness.
Yeah.
So for what, every 2 pounds of meat, 2 pieces of bread. So we got about 4 pounds of meat, and we're gonna use 4 pieces of bread. You basically wet the bread.
Some people eat that's a lot of water.
No, and then I squeeze it out.
Some people use water. You can use milk too, to wet the bread.
And
We
then-
don't. We use water. Some people even do white wine.
Remember that was the grossest part when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Touching the
Wet
wet
bread.
bread.
Yeah, that was
Some people,
shocking right there.
some people use breadcrumbs. I don't use breadcrumbs. I like
Yeah,
bread.
breadcrumbs tends to dry it out.
We have a shocked viewer.
I've never
What?
seen
A gas.
whole bread under the
Yeah,
Oh.
that was an aggressive
Oh,
one.
you could dunk a peep in 2-day
Hey,
old
let's
root
not get
beer.
that on video.
So we're using Pecorino Romano cheese grated. It's in between 1/4 and 1/2 pound, so 0.37 pounds of this. You're gonna sprinkle this around on the meat. We're gonna use the majority of this.
Yeah, it's not all of it.
The cheese is key to a good meatball, a moist meatball. So we're gonna use most of that. Might as well throw it all in. Now we're gonna start, I'm gonna just mix it a little bit. I'm gonna put the eggs in first though, before I mix.
You're not mixing anything until you put all the ingredients in.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say.
So just like the bread, you use 2 eggs to every 2 pounds.
So we're gonna use what, 4 eggs? Just like the bread, 4 eggs.
So then if you were making, this is a double batch, right?
Yeah.
So if you're making one batch, it'd be 2 pieces of bread.
2, 2, and 2.
2, 2, and 2.
So, yeah,
Now it's 4, 4, 4.
right.
Good math.
See how that is?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Lost count.
Can I throw in a cooking tip?
Go ahead.
It's actually better to crack the eggs on a flat surface. That way the eggshell doesn't go inside the egg.
My eggshells will never go inside. Did you crack it appropriately, Jeffrey?
Okay, so
So that's the last advice you
Yeah.
give.
Well, thank you.
So, a few other things that need to go in are, I don't measure this, so this is how I learned from my mom, but, so we'll do a little salt, a little pepper, some garlic powder, and parsley. So, the way I measure, I mean, I don't know how much this is, but you kind of just want to, you don't want to go too crazy with the salt, but just do like 3 times around of each of these. It's not really 3 times around, but that was the garlic powder. And then, since it's summer, we can use fresh parsley, but this is dried fresh parsley that we made. So again, I don't usually measure, but just gotta sprinkle. Since it's a double batch, so it looks like a lot, but it's.
And as we
not.
mix it, we'll see whether we have to add more cheese or more parsley, depending on the
boy.
consistency of, you'll see the mixture, you'll see parsley flakes through the meat, and that's what we're looking for once we get it all mixed together. And this takes a little bit of effort, because you're always trying to mix it in there.
The texture
Yeah.
doesn't freak you out, or?
No, and the smell, and you're gonna see the color. See, it's very red, but then it's gonna get a little duller with the cheese mixed in there and whatnot. Then you're gonna know, that you're right. And you don't want it too wet, and that's why we'll add some more cheese. That's why we left a little bit out right there. And you don't wanna over mix it either.
Yeah, because they'll become too,
This meat is cold. so
Too
my hands
firm.
are freezing.
too hard. No, it's the consistency of them will make it too hard. As you bake them.
That's pretty close. I think a little more cheese.
A little more
Also-
cheese, a little bit more parsley.
Yeah.
I might just use the rest of this.
Come on, parsley.
A little bit. My thing's
Yeah, I'll take care of those. Okay, we'll finish this up. And see how that, adding a little cheese, dried that out, and see how the color changed? It's a more pink, a little less, not vibrant, bright pink. And that's it. You just make sure you don't have big clumps of parsley or bread or cheese. You can see how it's mixed pretty evenly throughout. And that's ready to go to make into meatballs.
Yeah, you just gotta keep your hands flat. Okay, you know.
Okay, now you're gonna start rolling the meatballs.
Oh,
Take a
that's too much.
small quantity, yeah, in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Mash it together,
Yeah.
and then start the two-handed roll process. Excellent.
That's gonna be rounder than yours.
It's gonna be better, so. Oh yeah. Damn.
Nice. Very nice, Jeffrey.
Thanks.
And that's a lot of meat there. We'll count how many meatballs at the
Yeah.
end, how many I made with that amount of meat.
Matching uniforms.
Press it together pretty
I
good unless
am.
you want a nice roll.
I am.
Yeah.
If I do this, it gets like. You do good at it.
Thank you.
Jeffrey's got the process down.
Yeah.
He paid
I'm a
attention
slow learner.
during his class.
I'm a slow learner.
I mean, you had 25 years, but the first time participating.
No, I remember making it as a kid and getting skeeved out.
Yeah,
By
I
the
did not
bread
like
and
the
the-
texture.
Yeah, I mean,
Wet bread threw you off. So out of that batch, we got 28 meatballs, pretty large meatballs. We were generous on the rolling. And now we're gonna start frying them.
Okay. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna heat up in a nice saute pan some olive oil. You wanna make sure it's hot. And you're just gonna start. It should sizzle and make a wind.
You gotta leave room to be able to roll.
You don't want to fry up each side until they're really golden brown, so I'm going to leave them for a few minutes. Use a fork. You can use whatever, yeah. I tend to use a fork, but you can use whatever utensil that's easy for you to flip them. You're just going to start flipping them over.
So notice as you are rolling the meatballs using a fork, gently doing that, and the consistency of the meat is very important because if they start breaking up, sometimes meatballs will fall apart. That's where the term breaking your balls came from. You do not want to break your balls while making meatballs. All right, now we are going to learn how to make fresh homemade pasta. These are the ingredients that you need. This is a 00 flour, they're called. This is from Italy. It is a extra fine, flour.
Unbleached flour.
Unbleached flour. This is semolina. That's a Durham wheat flour. So you're going to use 4 cups of this and 1 cup of semolina. That's what we have right here, mixed. You're going to use 1 cup of tepid water, or just, it's warm water basically. You're going to use 2 teaspoons of salt. You're going to need a rolling pin, and this is a roller. That is what we're going to make. Today we're going to make cavatelli increspati, which is a ridged cavatelli. This is a scraper that you're going to need, and 4 eggs. And we are going to start by taking the salt and adding it to the water. And we're going to stir that up, and you spoon that one. We are going to crack 4 eggs. Now, I recently learned that if you crack an egg on a flat surface, it limits the shells that possibly could get in your batch. So that was just a little tip. Ooh! So now what you're gonna do is break up your eggs and whisk those a little bit, and you're gonna add the salt water mixture that you made right into this. That's good, right? Now, we already cleaned our surface after we did everything. And we are going to mix the two flours together. The durum wheat flour and the bland regular flour, 00 flour. We're going to mix that up. And we're going to put that right here on the table. Then what we're going to make is what you'll people refer to it as a well. Almost like a little volcano, right? You're going to spread this out, and you're going to make this well. And that's where you're going to start adding your mixture into. And then slowly you're going to pull in and start mixing. Just start mixing to make the pasta. Flour, you get it on your hands, and you can get that all off with the flour. See?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what you do is, once you get it where you think, and I don't think this is done yet, but we'll show you, you put your finger in, and if it springs back, see how that's not springing back yet? Mm-hmm. It's not done yet. So you keep rolling.
About 10 minutes.
10 minutes you're going to be working this thing.
10 minutes.
Okay.
Good bounce back.
Spring.
So we're going to wrap this in plastic, and we're going to let it rest. There you go.
Boom. And how long do you put it?
This is going to rest for a half hour minimum, but closer to an hour. There you go. Okay, so now this rested, and we're gonna cut. Oh, it's still sticky. We're gonna cut a piece of this. Okay, and then we're gonna wrap this back up so it stays moist. And then this we're going to roll out. Now we're going to cut these into about 3/4 of an inch strips. This. Okay. And then you're gonna roll these like this. Out fairly evenly, and then you kind of just leave them for a minute. Yeah, and then you guys are going to roll these. So you start in the middle and you kind of go out like that, very lightly with your hands. Okay. So then you get these strips like this. Chopper's gonna do that. Too much, it's hard to roll. So you start in the middle and you go out. Nice job, Jeffrey.
Thank you.
After you roll these, you're gonna take and cut them about 3/4 inch, just little, because they'll swell in the pasta, or in the water when you do it. So you make all these, and then you're gonna roll them, so here you go, on the board. If you want ridged, as we said, increspini. Cavatelli and Crespini. That's ridged cavatelli.
Wow.
There you go. Or you can do it without ridges, right on,
Or you do it, yep. Just do it away from me.
and that's cavatelli. Ridged or unridged.
Oop.
And that's it.
Yep.
Cool. Okay, go ahead. Good.
Oh, we gotta get, yeah. Why do you do a bunch?
Yeah.
Yeah, we could get like a.
Can you do 2 at
All right,
once?
ready?
Yeah.
Huh? Oh,
Too
here.
much flour on my hands. Too much flour. Not conducive to
Too much flour.
Stirring the sauce. Ever so gently.
So the sauce is just gonna sit on low pretty much all day, probably 4 hours. And cooks, and then we're just gonna leave the pasta to dry, and we're just gonna until we're ready to cook it. It should only take, fresh pasta takes about 2 to 5 minutes to cook. So when we're ready.
Lightly sauced.
Lightly sauced.
Finished product.
Do it with a glass.
Oh,